Okay, so today I'm going to try the lesson a little bit differently today. I'm going to do this using a different method. So this is not that I'm doing the lesson differently, I'm doing the video a little bit differently. I hope the audio is a little better this way. I'm working with some different mics, so we'll see how this works. So today we're going to talk about functions, in particularly just general function ideas. Just realize a function consists of a set of inputs called domain. I hope that this is review for you, that you're familiar with these terms. We're not going to focus so much on domain and range, but you have to be familiar with what they are. So a function has inputs. So something is put into an equation. It's called the domain. So if you have an equation like for a line, for example, y equals 3x plus 5, the x's would be considered the domains because that's going into the function, and the y values are coming out of the function. So for an equation to be considered a function, you must have a rule that each input determines one and only one output. So you can't have, the input can't determine two outputs, okay? So let's look at some functions and see whether they are equations and see if they're functions or not. So the first one here, okay, number 5, it says y equals 3x squared minus 12. So if we were to put, say, the number 2 in there, we would get a unique solution, okay? If we were to put the 3 in there, we'd get a unique solution. There wouldn't be more than one answer. There's not more than one possible answer for that. So that would be considered a function. Likewise, the same thing with number 6. There's no way that we can get more than one answer. So yes, these are both functions, all right? For an example of something that is not a function would be something where maybe the y was squared, because then you could have more than one answer. You could have a positive and a negative answer. So if your outputs are squared, then you would not be a function. Okay, so here's practice number 1. This one you're going to want to try on your own. These are a little tricky, and this really is focusing on the fact that you have background knowledge that have done this before. So see if you can come up with, my best recommendation for this is see if you can come up with more than one solution for the y. And if you can't, then it is a function. Okay, so here's your solution. Okay, example number 2. Okay. So now these are functions, and it gives you 3 different functions. Now I want you to realize that on your homework this is going to happen. You're going to be given function. Now I hope you're familiar with function notation. Okay, f of x, g of x, h of x, that you're familiar with the term. Okay, a function, f of x is not f times x. All right, it is. It's saying it's a function of x. So x is the input, and f of x is the output. And you're going to be given problems where you have to solve based on the input. So in this situation here, I have these different functions, and then I have a problem. So if you'll notice, here are my functions, f of x, g of t, and h of x. And here's my problem. It wants me to find f of the square root of 2. So I have to put square root of 2, I have to put the square root of 2 into the function for f of x to solve it. So if it says f of x, that means that anywhere I see an x, I'm going to replace it with the square root of 2. So f of the square root of 2 equals the square root of the square root of 2. Okay, trying to get my little arrow to go the other way. Okay, the square root of the square root of 2 plus 3. Notice the plus 3 isn't changed at all. There's no x, so it stays the way it is. And then I move over here, and there was another x in the equation, so I put another square root of 2. And then I put all of that into my handy-dandy calculator, and I get the answer. Okay, so a lot of these, you need to show these steps. You need to show plugging in, like this, and then you also need to show the answer. You don't have to show the in-between steps, because I know you have calculators that can do that for you. Now you notice also that we only used one function. We used the f function. Okay, we didn't use the g function or the h function. Okay, what's going to happen is at the beginning of a section in your homework is it'll give you the functions it wants you to use, and then you have to pay attention to what it's asking for. So if it asked for g of square root of 2, I would have plugged it into the g function. If it asked for h of the square root of 2, I would have plugged it into the h function. So, okay, moving on. Here's your practice problem. Okay, it gives you the function at the very top, f of x equals the square root of x squared plus 1, and then it asks you to find 3 different ones, okay? I did 3 on this because I thought it was a fairly easy example to do and won't take very long. All you're doing is plugging the numbers in and solving. Okay, and there are your solutions. Again, calculator problems, so the answers are approximate. All right, example 3. So example 3, this is a little more complicated, and it's because we're taking and we're plugging in stuff for huge functions. So we're doing a lot to the function itself, all right? So if you look at this, it gives me a big function. It says f of x plus h. Look at this, sorry, I'm going to point, okay? F of x plus h minus f of x divided by h, all right? And then it gives me a function f of x equals x plus 1. And it wants you to plug this x plus 1 in for f of x, all right? So, or sorry, the other way around. I'm backwards, okay? It wants you to plug x, it wants you to do this. So f of x plus h is going to go in place of the x, and then you'll put f of x in there by itself, and then the h will stay alone. So this is where we're going to really start delving into, can we really understand what we're doing with the functions? So let's look at how this works. So where I see f of x plus h, I'm going to plug x plus h in for the x, because I'm plugging into this function. So it becomes x of x plus h plus 1. My subtraction sign stays the same, and then my f of x is x plus 1. So that stays there. And then we're going to divide the whole thing by h. It just says h. Then I'm going to simplify, okay, and that means getting rid of parentheses and distributing. So, and I did 2 steps in once here, so I apologize for this. But so right here, so I got x, here I can go up here to show, x minus x plus h plus 1 minus 1, okay, and I was able to cancel out my x's and my 1's. And I'm left on the bottom with 1, or with h. So if I have h divided by h, the answer is 1. So it's really interesting that I can have this big old long complicated function and still come up with a fairly simple answer. Sometimes your answers will still be complicated, and that's okay. You simplify the best you can and leave it. So, all right, let's see if you can do one of these on your own. So this is a simpler one. This doesn't have the divided by h, okay? But it has f of x plus h and then minus f of x. So plug them in and then simplify. And here's your solution. So, all right. And that's it. I will see you tomorrow.